This is an interesting interview that Jones had on the BBC on some sort of a Sunday show. And what I found most interesting was that the individual who was essentially combating wasn't actually combating conspiracy so much as combating what could have been an open possibility that Alex Jones is part of the conspiracy. And let's just try to listen to it.
You have absolutely blown it wide up, but it leaves me with a huge question for you, Alex. You have uncovered the New World Order, which is deadly. It's full of what you call people who are criminals. Well, this is what I'm coming to. It's full of criminals, etc., who seek to run the world and will kill anybody who gets in their way. And you are almost, have been, a lone crusader powering against them. No, so, how are you still alive?
Why am I alive?
Which is the explanation? One, they don't exist. Or two, you're part of the conspiracy.
No, let me tell you a story.
I say the first.
5 years ago when Obama and Hillary...
I say the second.
5 years ago when Hillary and Obama...
Alright, now that was so important. And Jones got nervous. Jones basically got nervous. That basically like set the tone for what was going to happen in this interview. Because what you have is the BBC host. I mean, you literally have the host saying, I think Jones is part of a conspiracy. And you have this guy actually saying, you know what, I think it's the second too. I mean, he pitched the first one, but then he said I think it's the second. I mean, it's significant that he says that, but at no point do these people admit, okay, there are special interests that are controlling things. They took advantage of this show, this interview with Jones, and just to ask him this, because people are starting to see a conspiracy, and they're starting to wonder about things like controlled opposition groups. And I feel bad. I don't like to discredit Jones, but they did call out things like cancer viruses and the vaccines. And one must understand, even if Jones is right, because he's right about things like that, maybe estrogen in the water supply, fluoride even in the water, it's just bad PR. They know that if you talk about that, it's such a jarring, cognitive dissonant sort of thing that basically it will turn people off. And Jones's MO, I would say, has always been that. But people have to understand that he, like I say, I think it's triple blind. He's compromised. He has to do what he has to do by some weird thing. But listening to him will, through osmosis, grant the listener a very, useful template for thinking. But you'll notice that Jones, in this show, right off the bat, is calling the Bilderbergs top of the top, calling them, basically they have a Nazi agenda, and people that are seasoned conspiracy theorists would know that Bilderbergers, they're sort of like 1%ers, not 0.01 percenters. Some of them are 0.01 percenters. You're more likely to find these crazy 0.01 percenters at the Bohemian Grove. And what I do want to say is that basically he's also trying to make it out to be like, okay, the Nazis survived, and even he knows the idea that the Nazis were a controlled opposition group by the powers that be to do what they did, essentially found Israel, populate Israel. And I'm not saying that it's. I'm actually of the idea that what we have, what's really running the world, happens to be a sort of occultic Jewish mysticism, not necessarily even Judaism, but very much looking out for the interests of Judaism, but actually has an alternative occultic satanic twist on it. Anyway, well, what I'm trying to say basically right now, because it's all about bringing the Messiah and the God back to earth and stuff like that. Pretty psychopathic, because it's very likely to be just not true. So all these efforts are basically in vain and screwing up the world. Anyway, that aside, very interesting interview. Going to link this for you. But what I find the most interesting is that right there, you have the host and this other man who basically openly are just like, I think you're part of that conspiracy. Let's just hear it again. I know this is uncomfortable, and I really don't like to see this,
Let me tell you.
because there's a sense in which they need to be able to value what he's able to do in an X Factor sort of way. And it is curious watching them pile in behind their controlled opposition group. So we do need to raise these suspicions. This will inevitably occur, and you also have to be careful, because as soon as Jones doesn't become useless, and this is scary to him because he knows it, this man is smart, they will basically kill Alex Jones or disappear him or something, and it'll make it look like he was legit, if they in fact want him to be somewhat legit.
You're part of the conspiracy.
No, let me tell you a story.
I say the first.
5 years ago when Obama and Hillary.
I say the second.
5 years ago when Hillary and
I say the second, you're behind it. This guy agrees. He's like, yeah, actually, I say the second too.